Today we're joined by Mr. Mike Bygrave. Good morning. Well, for me it's morning. You, it's it's evening.
Yeah, evening. It's 9:30 in the evening now, right?
Yeah, so it was cool because we're actually at the same time, just 12 hours apart. So to the minute, I'm at 9:36, and I think you're at 9:36. So
That's right. Yeah,
that's
yeah. It makes calculating the time difference pretty easy between us. So that's good.
yeah,
But you're having breakfast, and I'm just picking up a late dinner.
yeah. So it's still Tuesday over there, correct?
Yeah, that's right. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, you've got me.
All right. So why don't you start by giving us a little bit of background of where you
Sure.
came from, how'd you get to where you are?
Yeah. Well, it's been a bit of a journey actually. So just going back, junior days, probably started playing golf around 12 years old, and that was kind of fun because it was me and my best friend. His mom worked at a golf club. And she'd just keep us there in the school holidays to keep us out of trouble. And then it started as pitch and putt golf, and about 4 or 5 years later, then just made it onto the main golf course. So I can remember my first handicap 28, completely addicted to the game, grinding it out, all the bad habits, and I got down to 2 handicap. And that was inside 2 years, so it was pretty quick progress. But then I took lessons, and it got a little bit worse. So that's normally a route that a golf coach takes, where they see they've gone down the wrong path and they want to stop other people from doing it. But then I got to, around 18 years old, and I got my first girlfriend, and golf got put on hold for 2 years, and picked it back up. Got into greenkeeping thinking that I could work in the morning and then go play golf in the evening, but it just doesn't work that way. It's a very tiring job. And then signed up to the army, did my 6 years in the military, and that was voluntarily. And had that moment I was in Cyprus actually, and I just had this moment where I thought, what would I do? What do I really want to do? I wasn't staying in the army for a long time, and then that's where the golf coach calling came. And there's a little bit more to it, but somebody had on your show, Rob Cheney. I remember when I got to the end of my military career, and you get to do like a work placement for 2 weeks. And I emailed a lot of golf professionals in the UK, and the only person that replied to me was Rob. And I just said, look, can I shadow you for 2 weeks? And Rob said, come out to Portugal. And I loved it, loved everything about it. So it was great to be around Rob. And I remember just being stood on the range and seeing this guy top the ball, fat the ball, dribble it on the range. And I'm looking at him thinking the grip's wrong, the way he stood is wrong. And 30 minutes later, the guy's hitting a push draw. And it was just groundbreaking to me. So it was quite interesting to see a good golf lesson and not the ones that maybe I'd felt I had when I was younger. And then my journey from there kind of went into the PGA, did the trainee side. 3 years while qualifying, I was still doing some coaching, made my way out to China after that, 1 year in China, and then 6 years in Hong Kong. So it's been a heavy coaching journey, but really enjoyable one.
That's great. So you're from the UK, United Kingdom.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, northern part of UK, but many people say you don't sound like, there's part of me that sounds northern, but when you're working around a lot of multinational students, you've got to get rid of, you can't call it water. So you have to change your accent a little bit.
Yeah, that's cool. So yeah, Rob Cheney's I like
He's
Rob. I
awesome.
like Rob's material. I like what he's doing, and like I
Mm.
told him, I like you. What I found interesting about you and what I wanted to hear from you is, the content you're putting out is interesting. It's thought provoking, and it provides some insights. It gets you to think, which is basically what I think should be the because there's a lot of debates and a lot of positions that people take. They break off into camps, and it's like
Yeah.
you know, and
Yeah, for
I
sure.
think that I don't think it has to be that way. I think there's room for analysis and independent thinking.
Yeah, I feel that. I feel you see a lot of coaches that there's a lot of tools you can get out there, right? And there's certain people that are definitely over my time. I didn't really enjoy some of the stuff they put out, but they may say something one way, and I like the way they deliver that line. And it's interesting. The people that I'm not particularly a fan of, I like to listen to them because I want a reason to like them more. So I think it's kind of nice to open your mind a little bit more. And there's definitely certain coaches that over the time, very in my early days, I was biased against. and the more I've listened to them, I'm probably a little bit more open-minded than I used to be. And I go, you know what? They're right about things that I didn't feel they were right about 5 years ago.
That's growth. That's part of the process, right? Growing up and learning and doing those things. And I think that's what I enjoy about watching your what you put up there. So basically your formation or your tuition or your instruction is based on what? Well, who's been the major influences on what you currently teach?
There's a lot. I mean, I think many common names pop up, but of course, Rob helped me a lot. Like I'm super thankful for Rob because I think he, at a very early point, he gave me passion to get into coaching. Being around Rob, there's some good energy, really good energy. But definitely at the time, he was in Portugal and the heat was too much for me right then, so I couldn't. Portugal wasn't for me at the time.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Rob's been great. And then from Rob, there's Andy Plummer. So I've definitely spent a lot of time around Andy Plummer. I've seen him in UK, Shanghai, I believe Hong Kong too. No, Singapore. But yeah, I've traveled a lot to see Andy, Andreas Calais, brilliant. And the way he applies that. And then just some of the stuff that listening to Robert Rock, I like the way that Robert Rock kind of simplifies a lot of the stuff, as perfect as the swing may look to the eye. Just when you hear him talk about how he plays the game, it kind of takes away the science of it, and it's just I play golf, and I like that too. And then very early, definitely a good friend who was a role model to me, a guy called Alex, who's not a golfer but felt that he could get to scratch really quick. A guy called Alex Swan, awesome guy, and he just put a video my way, and it was a Mac O'Grady video from 1986. Probably all seen that one. And the first time I watched it, I kind of thought, well, who's this guy? He's crazy. And then when I watched it again and again and again, I was like, hey, I need to rewatch this. And I was writing so many notes on his material. And it was back in the day where you would kind of exchange stuff. And I've never met, like, a very upfront, I've never met Mac. And I think I burnt many bridges, probably early days, of just being very upfront on forums. Like, has anybody got any Mac material? And I want to learn more about it. And I got a couple of warnings from people like, hey, you shouldn't be asking these questions or you shouldn't be sharing that. But it became a swap shop. I'd say, hey, I've got this. What do you have? And stuff would come my way. And you just want to dig. And it's just his enthusiasm for the game and his passion for how he describes it is just phenomenal. So the more and more I dug, the more I had questions, not as many answers. But it was one of those that you want to just go and practice and try it. And so I think combining kind of Andy, Rob, Mac stuff, and then also people that I've been around and seen coach. In the UK, there was a coach that I spent a lot of time with called Mike Beaumont. He was also super curious, really good. Working in a driving range near Birmingham, I'd go see him and we'd work a little bit on the swing, but it'd be 15 minutes of technique and 45 minutes of just talking technique and trying to break down the whys. And it was just passion. I've been around the right people that just kind of push you to dig more. And I remember on the forums, you get guys like Dana Dahlquist explaining everything. I think if you go back 10 years, maybe more than that, 12 years, there were those guys, Joseph Mayo, Trackman Maestro back in the day, Brian Manzella. These were the guys that were putting out as much information as they could, building their name, building their brand, and just sharing a lot. And I'm thankful to that. Like, if somebody sees my stuff and they say, hey, I learned something from that, and later down the line, I've helped them make a career in golf coaching, I'm happy, because definitely there's a lot of people I've not met that I can credit I've learned from. So it's a long list, but it's definitely the guys that many people you'd find online and you dig deep to find more about.
Yeah. I think it piques the curiosity. And I've said it before that with the advent of the internet, the world changed. The whole industry got disrupted. I was talking to, I don't remember who I was talking to. I can't follow. But, back in the days, I say, like, I have this binder with clippings, and this is like, all these swings and all.
That's a dream.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
But this is like 10 years of accumulation. You understand? So over the years, you pick stuff up and you do that. And then the internet came around and we had this back. The first one was alt.golf.this was a mail server, and I was at Columbia University, and we had a big whatever, and guys were just in other schools and or who had access to this thing. You get an email about the response to your post on whatever. Kept growing and growing, and what it did was it created a filter, in my opinion. So people espoused a lot of stuff, and a lot of times they were called out on it. Right?
Yep.
It made everybody smarter because as we were lurking, this guy's like finding a hole in his philosophy. He's going back to the drawing board and trying to come back with an answer. And if you're sitting there and you have and you can absorb all that stuff, then you can sort it out. And I think it's made a lot of great teachers. A
Yeah.
lot of great teachers.
Yeah. I feel that. I feel like the binder you've got there, the collection of golf swings. The more you look at it, I mean, I've got one in my desk, which the vault that I put together. But the more you look at it, the more you sometimes question what you believe, and that's the fun part. And then looking at why it matches up. I know there's always that word of matchups, but it's also compensations to some extent. You've got to pair that with a counter movement potentially to match the ball flight that you intend to create. But it's just fun. I feel blessed that we're in a service industry where people, they come with a goal and we can help them achieve it. And it's not that serious at the end of the day. It's a little bit of golf, but there's a lot of fun around it.
Yeah, I think that the fact that some people take it. Yeah, I'm not a teacher per se. I didn't pursue that. I passed the playability test here in the United States is the entry point for the professional golf PGA membership. Anyway, so I passed the PA, but I had no intention of turning pro because I was a manager of a big, large facility, large driving range with PGA members and nonstop lessons, and so I was around all that. I got certified by several, like Bob Toski and Jim Flick. Then the facility, the company I worked for bought out uh, Jimmy Ballard, was Colbert Ballard Golf School. So I was certified as that, but I wasn't a professional. I was just a golf nerd. So, and I had Rick Nielsen, who was the head pro, and he was a golfing machine guy. So
Yep.
I had a lot of stuff at my disposal. So
That's a fun read.
yeah. So
It's just, where do you start?
yeah, where do you start? So, what made you go to China?
Oh, kind of by chance, actually. I spoke to somebody who was in Singapore, and I just got to that point where I'd done my 3 years in the UK, and I was lucky that I was in Birmingham, or that I'd placed myself in Birmingham because it's right next to the HQ for the UK. So they put on a lot of external education, and you'll get speakers come in, like Brian Manzella came there, Michael Jacobs came there, Rob Neal came there. There were a lot of James Ridyard come there, Andy Plummer had come there, but you'd get people come in, and we'd be paying quite often $40 for a seminar from good guys for a day. So it was a great place to learn. But then once I'd finished my training, the appeal of going overseas was just too high. I think UK for me, I'd be coaching for 8 months of the year, and then you get that 2 to 4 month period where it could be wet, the course could be closed. And I just wanted a little bit more year-round coaching. And then I approached Singapore, didn't work, and by chance I played a game of golf with somebody who was going to China the next day. So we played a 36-hole tournament together. We swapped details, and then after the Singapore came through as we're not ready for another coach yet at the location, he messaged me and said, "Do you fancy a trip to China?" So that was good. And I went to Beijing 1 year, but I knew somebody in Hong Kong, and they wanted me to join them. And so I made a trip over to Hong Kong, and no regret. I really love this place for coaching.
How long have you been there?
6 years now. So you can get permanent residence at 7 years. And I'm about, 6 months away from that now. So it's really good. But I worked at golf tech you have in the US. So I joined a golf tech here because I knew somebody pretty well. And it was good. And then I ended up taking the manager position there. And I remember we had a few coaches. Rob Cheney was one of them. And there's a couple more. But we were doing quite well from online coaching, or we had some online presence, and it came to the point where it kind of contradicts some of what Golf Tech want. They want their own brand image, which is fair, but the conversation was, if you want to represent yourself, you can't do it here, but if you want to represent Golf Tech, you can do it here. And I think that speech was more of a kind of a warning, but it just made a few of us go, do you know what? Actually, I'm ready to make the jump and go. And one of my students reached out to me and said, I'm opening a location, an indoor location. Do you want to join that? And it's been brilliant. It's really, that's where I am right to this day. But it's Trackman based, indoor. But the difficulty in Hong Kong is access to the golf course for coaching. It's just not available.
Yeah.
So it's taking what you have in front of you and trying to relate that to what they do on the golf course, and playing as much as you can with students as well, just for the fun of it, rather than coaching on a golf course. But it's enjoyable to try and make these skills transfer over the indoor to the outdoor.
How accessible is it to play golf in China?
It's okay.
I mean, Hong Kong, when Hong Kong was a British colony, it was a financial headquarters. So it was, I'm sure there's, I don't know
Yeah,
what it is now.
Well, Hong Kong Golf Club, where they held one of the Live Tour events, that's private members club. So I think there's 4 private members clubs and 1 public course. So private member club Hong Kong Golf Club is a 20-year waiting list. Right. So it's quite hard to get into, and then quite a decent lump sum to join the club. But the public golf course, it's a journey. You will leave your apartment at 5:30 in the morning. Take about 40 minutes to get to the ferry port. You take a ferry for 30 minutes, then you get a shuttle bus for a few minutes, and then you're at the golf course. And if you're up at 5:30 to try and get the first ferry about 6:40 in the morning, you'll be home by about 3 p.m. And that's probably pretty close to the quickest you can do it. So it depends how, but I would definitely say if a golfer makes it from Hong Kong, and there's a few names to watch out for, they're going to be pretty good, because they have to work hard to just get out there and play and practice.
They paid their dues.
They're working
trying to get
hard,
to the golf course in and of itself is an adventure. But I imagine with the congestion, because Hong Kong is a very populated city. I imagine. I haven't been there.
Yeah.
I grew up in the Lower East Side of Manhattan. Okay, so my elementary school, right? So I'm Latino. It'd be like 3 or 4 of us and 38 Chinese, most from Hong Kong, but the others were from Taiwan. So I grew up basically in that type of environment. So I grew up on the edge of border of Chinatown in Little Italy. But I can imagine, I visualize, and they show me pictures and stuff. There was a lot going on. Small.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, Hong Kong as a place is just phenomenal. The lifestyle here is good. You've got the mix of mountains, you've got beaches, you've got the city life. The people are very, very welcoming. I feel like if in the UK we have somebody who's an outsider, they're almost treated as an outsider, whereas here you always feel like you're treated more like a guest. So it's a very different attitude. You go to a coffee shop, go to a bar, you can leave your phone on the side. You can leave Trackman. We have a facility that's 24 hours and people can just come and sign in. Crime is good as well. Like, it's very, very nice place to be, really.
Good quality of life, right? So
very good, very good.
That's good to hear. Yeah, so when you mentioned you were talking the O'Grady videos and all that. So me and Andreas Cali go back when he first started. Yeah, he was writing me, and I was trying to, we wanted to get information. So, and I kind of admired that. I said, this kid, he's interested and he's willing to learn and he doesn't care. And he's going to put in the time. And so I unloaded all my videos to him. But that's back when it was a secret.
I won't put Andreas in the dirt by this,
They found their way.
Maybe, yeah, if there's a signature on these, I could find your name somewhere. Maybe.
Yeah, he's a good kid.
Yeah, he's turning out some great players as well, right? Yeah. The academy, everybody's very good, very good. Nice to see.
He's very grounded, so he's the same guy he was 15 years ago. That's good to see. I mean, humility is I think is a very important part of growth. I admire what he's done, but when I first back in those days, there was Andy and Bennett and Plummer, they start stacking tilt. Somewhere in there, they got something happened. They got stigmatized. I don't know what, and it became this. I don't know, a model or a method, right? A method, which is what they labeled it, categorized it, right? And it was Charlie Wee and Eric Wexler, I think, and they all looked the same. Yeah, they looked like hanging left and communist. And it went from the hottest thing since sliced cheese to what I'm talking about. The players that were actually benefiting from it on tour, or they didn't want to get in that circle. And that was way back when I first started doing this. When I was first doing this blog, it was about 15 years ago. I come back and I reach out to Andreas, and I talk to him, and we're talking. And he was my second interview because he couldn't. He was on a trip to California. But he was my second interview, and we started talking. And, I had catching up with him in his career and stuff, and he was saying that he was extremely grateful, or he credited a lot of what is his methodology to Andy Plummer, right? Now I look at his students, and they don't look like Charlie Wee. Follow me? So
Yeah.
it's just, there's something to it. So the fundamentals or the theories, the philosophies, they work. You don't have to look like Charlie Wee. That's my point.
Yeah, I mean,
not that there's anything wrong with Charlie Wee.
no. I've seen Charlie Wee hit a ball, and he was in Hong Kong for one of the tournaments,
Right.
and he popped by and hit some balls. And it was quite interesting because Charlie Wee, when I filmed him, and I've got the video somewhere, but P1 to P2, he moved off the ball.
Right.
And they were like, hey, this is a stack and tilt poster boy, and he's got a shift from 1 to 2. But he tidied it up by 4, which was good. But I mean, same. I mean, I cannot credit Andy enough because there's he just has that ability to put system in there, really, where I look at everybody and I do feel once I've spoke to them about what they really want to get out of a golf lesson, it comes down to, are they trying to improve their contact, their power, and their direction? And I've heard it come from plenty of people. I've heard there's a video from George Gankus, which if you were looking at two spectrums, they'd be near the opposite ends of it. And it's a little clip, and he does talk about, well, every player needs to strike the ball pretty well, hit it far enough, and control the power and control the direction. I think a lot of good coaches kind of stem back to something like that and have some kind of organization as to how they look at a golfer. And I think without that, going back to that first lesson, watching Rob Cheney teach, he took that student and went, what is his pain point? What can't he do? He can't strike the ball well. It curves off to the right. And it was just systemizing the problem. Whereas at the time, I looked at it as though I had a PGA mindset, and I was thinking, well, his grip doesn't look too good, and his stance didn't look too good, and Rob had him 30 minutes before a tee time hitting a draw shot and hitting clean contact, and we're like, okay, wow, I don't know how to do that. So yeah, definitely, Andy's a credit to helping me develop a system to teach golf. And same, I agree that you look at Andreas' students, and there's certain moves that you wouldn't credit to stack and tilt. Definitely not. But I mean, there's plenty of stories I've heard from Andy that I think it's best heard from Andy, because there's a lot of names in the golfing world that probably owe a little bit more credit to Andy than they give him. But that's a separate story, I'm sure.
But you know what? It is a credit to him, and
Yeah,
it's a credit to Andy himself. That's not out there. He seems like another guy who's just down to earth and does his thing and believes in what he's doing. He comes from the golfing machine, right?
Yeah.
To Morad or O'Grady, and then on to stack and tilt. So he's
Have you ever attended one of Andy's clinics at all? Have you ever been to one?
I've never.
If you do get a chance, fantastic, because a couple of little gems. The best time is after the seminar's done and you sat around, you're having a drink with Andy. I believe normally a Diet Coke, but the stories he tells, I mean, that's where you get the real gems and kind of who he's helped, who's helped him. But before every seminar, I mean, the first 15 minutes is him giving credit to Mac O'Grady. He's really thankful for everything Mac did to put him where he is today, for sure. So it's interesting. It's the same names that come up in the industry in certain camps, but yeah.
Yeah, and
there's a lot of good people. There's people who did different things. I see certain coaches are very good at presenting their work online. Some are very good at protecting their work and keeping it secretive. And there's probably many coaches I don't know who are very good at making people better that are just so under the radar. I'm sure of it.
they're just
But it's
interested.
interesting.
They're just interested in doing their job, right? So there's
Yeah.
other guys that want to promote it. Other guys. I think that if every coach put their stuff out there, it would make everybody better, right? Make them better, make everybody better. That's not the way, it's protection. Like some guys are protect. Like Mac O'Grady could have such a significant impact and leave a legacy in the industry that nobody could. I mean, he's done. So there was an interview recently. I saw a podcast where Greg McCatton was on, and him and Mac were contemporaries. Mac, as a teenager, one thing led to another. He's taking lessons with Ben Doyle. Him and Doyle aren't seeing eye to eye for whatever reason. So he calls Homer, and from what I understand, Homer says, "Stay. You got to see. You got Ben Doyle there." And Mac was frustrated, so the next day he's at Homer Kelly's door in Seattle.
Wow.
But like he's influenced a lot of people that aren't even mentioning it, that don't mention it. He didn't want it mentioned, but a lot of major winners, a lot of big time professionals, and whatever. That's what he wants. That's how he's going to be, and that's what it is.
Well, didn't Mac rewrite one of the copies of the Golfing Machine anyway, or
he never
pretty much? Oh, okay.
He never.
Yeah, that's it.
All right.
That's
Well, you're a golf fan, right? You want
for
to see
sure.
It? That's golf. That's Mac's copy. Okay, that's his manuscript.
Wow. Yeah.
Well, I understand.
Wow.
This came from somebody. Told me, he said that he went to see him on the down low, and was seeing him more, and that he entrusted him with the manuscripts. Told him not to show it to anybody. Actually, this gets published. So it's not.
For sure.
That's somebody who was there or who was around that. Wow. It's in one of my interviews. It's in one of my. If you want to watch it, it's not like I'm.
I'll dig deep on that one.
Told me on the spot that that's what happened, and that book came out.
Wow.
But that's actually a really good book. So,
Ooh.
but he never
I'll check that
finished
one out.
it. And honestly, I think that scientific method leads you to if you can't fall in love with your own recipe, you can't drink your own Kool-Aid and say it's great. So trying to micro quantify everything that he was doing, he was going to run into roadblocks and have to double back and have to reevaluate, and because it's not, I don't think there's perfection in the golf swing. I don't think you can nail it you can nail that motion to the level of precision that you think that it's, there's always going to.
You can understand it better,
right?
For sure. There's a level of understanding it better, but I think Mac had his many models, and I think that's his leeway on. Well, we can fit that piece into that model a little bit better.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So what do we expect from you in the future, Mike?
Ooh, continuous digging for sure, and a little bit more, but I'll keep sharing. I'll keep sharing what I see.
You're actually pointing out some really good stuff.
It's like you say, I think now we're in an era where there's more access to good swings, good. If we can avoid the PGA copyright firewall, that's a hard one. But there's a lot of data out there and a lot of things that I feel we can share. I'll keep pushing on that. But it's interesting. It's just interesting looking at how you apply that to a golfer, and inside that variability, how do you decide what you want to apply and what you want to keep and what you want to get rid of? And that's something that I think for me is just continuous learning,
Yeah.
because definitely there's certain pieces in the golf swing that don't look right and you want to fix them, but it gives some pain to players. You don't like the golf swing across the line, you try and lay them off, they look tons better and they hit push cuts.
Right.
You're like, okay, now I've got to fix something else. And that's probably not what they wanted to come in. They want it to be better for the weekend. And then you do get those guys who are more long-term focused. So continuing to find the pieces that work a little bit better for certain students is good. I'm just enjoying my coaching. Really, I have that good balance. I met a guy a long time ago, a guy called Roger Mace, and this is in the southern part of the UK. And he's an old boy. He used to know one of the commentators in the UK, Peter Alice, and I hope he's still alive. But his story, because he told me one time it was a snowy day on the driving range, and he kind of came out of his hut after I'd been military day of training, and he was chatting to me, and I said, look, I'm looking to leave the army at some point and going to coaching. And he said, look, if you get the balance between playing, teaching, and working in a pro shop right, you'll enjoy it. But if you're too heavy on one of them, you'll not like it at all. I mean, he must be late 80s now. But I went the opposite way. I just went following coaching, and I quite enjoy that. But definitely seeing a guy like that passionate for the game at an old age and sharing his secrets. But man, the ball flight laws have changed a little bit since then.
Well, a lot has changed, but a lot hasn't. So I mean, so if you, I don't know if you read the golfing machine has the ball flight laws,
Yeah.
pretty
Yeah.
close, pretty close to what
Yeah.
Deep Plane and Theodore Jorgensen has. Very
Yeah,
close.
it's like liner compression and
Yeah.
ball flight vectors. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
Club
So the
face vector.
vector's coming off, it's 80% off the face or something like that. But then there was this one here. I don't know if you can see that. That's the PGA Manual of Golf.
I never, yeah.
That's the one that got a Gary Wire and PGA Manual of Golf. That's the guy that's the one they gave a lot of heat to.
Yeah, you can recycle that one, right?
Yeah,
Is that one?
the path was responsible for the initial direction.
Well, a lot of people played good golf with that information.
Yeah, I mean, but here's the thing.
Crazy.
They could have thought that, you know what I mean? Like the guys were hooking and they were working the ball. And back then, working the ball was the way you played golf. It wasn't a power game. It was, the ability to control the trajectory and the curvature of the ball. That's how they played golf. And, they came, whatever they were thinking, they were making it happen, so it's probably
Yeah,
not.
some good players.
Yeah. Well, so do you have anything else you'd like to add?
No, not too much. I mean, I'll continue to put some stuff out. I think probably the most inquiries that come to me are just release related. I think I get a lot of players who get confused in that area. They don't know whether they should be releasing, shouldn't be releasing, holding, rolling, cupping, cocking, all those words. You can use the technical terms or the casual terms, but I deal with a lot of mid to high handicaps. And to be honest, I think I like that. I like that. I like working with, it's a different mindset. And I think this may be also a Hong Kong thing that people come to me with kind of a long-term goal in mind. It's not a quick fix. I'm here, I've had this problem for a while, I want to know how to get better. And it's quite nice having people that are committed for a year, committed for 6 months, whatever it may be, and you just got that time to make those changes. But it's interesting. Really, when I talk about the left arm location and I talk about how you match that release type up, it's just, for some people, it's that wake up moment that they've been trying it the wrong way. And they've seen a very good video online, which I could be part of the problem putting videos out, but they put them out and somebody tries it and it works for one person, doesn't work for the next. And it's just, it's a minefield, but it's fun.
That's actually a cool thing because, most, at least here in the continental U.S., most guys want most golfers want instant gratification. So, I was telling Mike Maliza, guys, just interviewing him. It's just, looking back myself, that there's nothing linear about progressing in that. Like you said, I played really good golf and I had no idea I thought that I had learned from Ledbetter's book, and that I was, I looked like David Frost, and the nice compact. I'm the same size, the same height, the same build. So that was the model, right?
Sure. Yeah.
I thought I was up here. Meanwhile, I'm back here. The ball doesn't know that.
No.
You know what I mean? The ball doesn't know that. The ball, somebody filmed me, and that was the end of it. I was never the same again. What? You mean this? Oh, hold on. Let's try to fix this. Let's get over here. Let's do that. It was over. And
Yeah. I think that's interesting as well when you take a golfer, because it's definitely people prioritize different parts of the swing. I've definitely been around coaches. I feel that starting at address is a good place to begin. Really good. It sets the intent for the shot. You can see a lot of where the ball should go from address, but not always where it will go.
Right.
But where it should go. And then for me, kind of working back from impact, I know some people spend a lot of time on getting the top of the backswing correct. They focus on that, but I see too many variations at the top to go, you need to be there.
Right.
But then if I work back from impact and I get to kind of a delivery position, the variability is reduced. The nearer you get to impact, that variation does reduce somewhat, but there's still variability in that. So I do like to kind of wind that back and have a look. And I like the anomalies. You look at the players that they shouldn't fit that mold, right? Why is their release wide, but they can still hit the ball well? How does DJ have no arm rotation, but hit the ball pretty much where he wants? And then how does that fit into his alignment? And how does that fit into his desired ball flight? It's all good. It's all really interesting to see. But then you get a 36 handicap in front of you, just first time on the golf course. And those patterns are a lot harder to deal with than your 10 handicap, your 5 handicap, your professional.
Yeah.
I think it's sometimes when you get those better players, they already know how to hit a ball. It's almost a little bit easier. Sometimes there's something small can make them a lot better, but you get a beginner and it's like, well, we might need to rebuild this. Like,
No. I
very
agree
early.
with you 100%. But there's people that come from other sports, and I played a lot of baseball and stuff, and I actually played a lot of all types of sports. And
Well, baseball's an interesting one. It's really because you think, oh, baseball, you're going to be great. And I haven't had good experience with baseball players because over in Asia, a lot of people, Japanese, Hong Kong, they try baseball and they get interested in it. Maybe because the cheerleaders are quite nice as well. They have good cheerleaders here, but yeah, they seem to want to move a different way. And one of my students, I can remember first time, and he'd just pause at the top, and he'd wait for a second before he came down, and the first thing I'd say in the lesson is, how did your practice go this week? And he'd say, great, I'm heading at 200 yards with my 7-iron. And it was always distance, but he didn't mind that he would miss a range. So the concept of golf was a little bit askew there. But
yeah,
how did baseball impact you then? How did that change your game?
well, it didn't because I'm from an older school. But the concept of hitting the golf ball and, well, the way I started was, again, a pitch and putt, right?
Yeah.
So I got fairly good really quickly because I figured out, well, there were no 60 degrees back then. Everything was a 56, right? So you had to make this 56 work, first thing. Second thing, the minute I found out how to maneuver it, it was just like playing pool. You understand?
Okay.
Billiards.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I learned from the green back. And
Okay. Yeah.
so the longest shot was 100 yards. The longest hole was 100 yards. So I learned how to score. I learned how to get the ball in the hole. I learned how to masse the ball. I learned how to move it. I learned how to stop it. I learned how to get it to roll. So the guys got upset because I got too good too quickly, and I was beating them. And these guys were good players. So, I'll bet you $100 you won't break 100 on a regular golf course. I thought about it, and I said, you know what, you're on. So I had a set of Patty Berg women's clubs. I had no idea, you know what I mean? I just had a good sandwich in both, but the rest of the clubs were ladies' clubs. They were Patty Berg's, and I picked a golf course that was 5,800 yards. It's Douglaston. I just I thought it out. I said, okay, if I can get to the 150, I can get down there in 5 maximum. More than likely, I can get down in 4. Right? So I did the
It gives you a
math.
good buffer.
Yeah, it had 8 par threes, 1 par 5. So it was a par 67 or something like that. I shot a 92, but I did the math.
Wow.
So, but here's the thing: I had never hit a drive, right?
Yep.
I figured if I hit a 5 iron, even if I miss hit it, I could get it somewhere. You know what I mean? Just keep advancing it to where I have a wedge in my hand, and I can, you know what I mean? And that's how I played it. So I didn't have the scar tissue, the mental scar tissue of slicing a ball all over the place, right? So when I finally was getting to the full swing, right? Then I started taking lessons. So I didn't just dive. That was coincidental, not because, had I started on a real golf course, it probably wouldn't have been the same. But yeah, but what I'm saying now is that the biomechanics, modern biomechanics of golf are the same as baseball. And if
Okay.
you follow a lot of baseball sites, because I winterize in Dominican Republic, so that's the baseball incubator of the world. They have like every major league team has an academy there. The Japanese league has an academy there. The Koreans have like 8 Japanese teams. They just incubate players, and it's a big, large, much larger than the golf in terms of dollars.
Yep.
So the amount that's invested, like a lot of that Doppler radar stuff, was being used for baseball. So you
Oh
look at
yeah, I see that. The
they
TrackMan
talk
there.
about the ball speed, the exit speed on a home run and stuff like that. Those were the original. That's where so I'm watching and I'm like, yeah, this is what these other guys are like the long drive guys. You look at the long drive guys, and you look at the baseball guys, and they all seem to be in
Yeah.
in in cahoots with that.
Yeah, I see. I did somewhat similar, kind of followed a few tennis sites, but I don't feel they're as far ahead. Like I remember that in the early days of when people were talking about ground reaction force more so, like the very early days of that kind of coming up and around, like the Kelvin Miyahara days and parts like that. But they're not that far ahead, or I never felt that I could find the information on ground reaction forces in tennis. So that was an interesting one. I tried to put that correlation there. But when you do ask students and you say, oh, do you play any of the sports? You need not to make the assumption they're good at them. I think if we ask people if they play golf and they say yes, and we assume that they know how to play, it's not always true.
Yeah,
So when I try and correlate like some of the moves that people may do in tennis to golf, and I realize, oh, actually, they're just beginners at tennis and they're just beginners at golf. It's quite interesting.
I think there's more correlation to there's a higher correlation, I think, to tennis than there is to baseball. But I think all motorsports seem to be anytime you're throwing a ball or taking a swing or something, they're intertwined. And
Yeah,
human
those
nature
movement patterns.
would say that you know the mo the natural movement, body movements would probably be pretty similar. Is what I'm saying. I mean, if you've never been uh, if you've never been trained at how to properly swing a baseball bat, you're probably not gonna be able to swing a golf club because it's all
Yeah,
go
fair.
big. You guys are gonna come out here and do this caveman instinct. But if you watch professional or good hitter, you're gonna see he drops the club he drops the bat into a slot, just like
Yeah, we've just got to introduce the ground to them.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the new part. That's the difficulty. The ball's stood still, but there's a ground there. Yeah, radius matters.
But it was harder to hit a static ball than it is a moving. For me, it was harder to hit the static golf ball. And if you gave any guy with a baseball background, they're going to assume that this is not moving. Why shouldn't I be
Yeah,
able
it
to
should
hit
be
it?
easy.
Should be easy. It's actually a lot harder. You know?
But I find it hard when I put a ball stationary. You've seen the trick shots where you've got the golf club with the ball on top, and I can't do that. I get straight underneath it each time.
Or the
So
T-ball.
yeah, that's a trick
Exactly.
trick shot I can't do.
Okay.
But Yeah, it's fun. It'll be interesting to see where the golf coaching world evolves to and what's next. But I think we'll probably go a little bit away from the science of it a little bit. I think it might get more into the human element again and trying to make people better and going away from a lot of the forces and talks.
I think that that's in a sense, in my opinion, and I'm not, I think the forces and the talks are happening.
Hmm.
I think in the end, I'm not sure how relevant the measurements are. In other words, if you're making an athletic motion, it's a byproduct of using forces and torques and all that stuff that's just happening in the background.
Yeah.
I'm just not sure that there's people that are quantifying those numbers. Um, and I'm not sure, like Greg McCatton, when I first, he did some early biomechanical work. And, he talked about how, you're going to have like 2 times your body weight
Hmm.
on the left side as you should know.
P5, yeah.
And it made sense, but I'm not sure you have guys measuring this on force plates and under the impression that if they can optimize that one portion, it's gonna change a lot of. So if you're coming down with, I don't know, 1.5, 1.6, and you should be at 2.
But
I don't know.
optimal is a fun word in golf, though. I mean, we optimal is everybody seeking optimal? That'd be my question. Like sometimes optimal. I remember I was having a call with a guy Jose, who's a caddy for Sebastian Munoz on Live, and we were chatting and we were talking about spin rates and 2,700, 2,800 is a sweet spot. There's optimal, but optimal might lose the ball into the trees when it's a bit toe hit, and you can't make a birdie from the trees, but you hit it a little bit high spin, it goes wrong, and you're in the semi rough. You can probably still make a birdie if things go your way. And I think optimal is good in a lab sometimes, and it's good to know which way you need to go to get better. But sometimes spinning it a little bit too much, hitting it a little bit shorter, managing ground force, not maximizing ground force, is not a bad way to play golf too.
Yeah, I mean, there's functional and there's optimal, right?
Mm.
Chasing
I think
optimal,
that's
chasing the
good.
optimal can
Yeah,
get you in some, yeah.
yeah. I mean, there's too many stories, and I'm sure you've heard them from other coaches and players that in chasing optimal, they kind of lose what made them good, and it's easy to do.
Quite a few of those guys out there. I mean, like, they keep talking about Luke Donald,
Mm.
Manacero. These guys are good players. They just, it's chasing. Yeah, you're right.
But when as a coach, actually the quote that I heard, which kind of was nice for me to hear, is we've got so little to gain, but so much to lose. And I think that's quite a good quote when you're talking to a good player who's just chasing that little bit extra. Like, how do I hunt that left flag? Can I make my swing a bit more neutral so I can turn it over if I need to, or whatever word they would use? Right. Well, what made you good? What got you to where you are today? Can we make that a bit better? It's interesting.
I absolutely agree
Find that.
with that. I mean, it's at some point you leave
Yeah.
well enough alone and just play, right? I think
But as a coach, I think a lot of coaches need to have their stamp, right? They need to leave their imprint on a player and make it known that that player's theirs. Maybe the player's got less to gain than the coach has got to gain, and that's sometimes a bit difficult to see happen.
but
Yeah.
it's also been a byproduct of a codependent relationship, in my opinion. Okay, in my opinion, it's just my
Hmm.
opinion.
I like this.
If you're a good coach, right, that player should be able to take what you taught him and be able to remedy himself, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
He should have
I love asking
fundamentals
questions.
that should be able to, you know.
Yeah.
And I think on tour, it's gotten to the point where these guys are the best in the world. And just because you had a bad day or you had a bad, what I mean? I got to go back.
Mm.
It
Yeah.
creates a perception that, yeah,
Yeah. No, I agree. I think it's a case of, I do like to say to my students, when something goes wrong, I'm like, well, why did it go wrong? And I'm trying to stem it back to what is the root cause? What is the problem? Identify it. Was it a contact issue? Was it too deep? Was it too far behind? Was it too much toe? Was it too much heel? Did it go left? Did it go right? Why? And then you figure that out from there. And then at least if they're taking their own medicine, there's a purpose behind why they're taking it. Not, I didn't like my elbow position. And it's like, okay. Well, I enjoyed talking golf swings. That's
Yeah, I mean, we could be here forever.
yeah. I
It's been a
appreciate it, Ralph.
pleasure. Unless you have anything else to add,
No, not at all, Ralph. I appreciate
I'm really happy I
it. Really.
met you. You're a great guy, and it's been a pleasure
Thanks
talking.
very much.
And maybe we'll do it again. Maybe there's a
Yeah.
topic I might call on you to talk
Well,
about. All righty?
I appreciate that. Yeah. I think I've got a lot to learn from you, Ralph. So
Thank you.
look forward to that too.
Thank
All right. Thanks very much,
you very
Ralph.
much, Mike. Have a good one.
Thanks. Bye bye.
Yes.